is my opinion, our government has failed its people. It has failed its people for decades now because the insecurity of our border is not it's a federal responsibility, but it has become a local problem. The failure to properly address issues of unlawful immigration at our border bleeds into our communities throughout the state and throughout the nation. It adversely affects our ability to provide public safety for our community.
There's one particular policy that is beginning to percolate, that's beginning to happen, and that is street drop-offs of immigrants who've come across the border, been processed by ICE or CBT, given their court date, whatever it is that they're doing, and they have nowhere to go. Those drop-offs in different communities around this state need to be communicated to the local government and to public safety, to law enforcement in those communities. We deserve to know that. We need to know that so that we can react and deal with it accordingly. To the federal administration who's created the policies that have led to this situation, this is not working. All the sheriffs unanimously agree. We have to secure the border now. This experiment, whatever it was, has failed us, and it's crystal clear. Anybody with eyes that can see the video and the pictures of what's happening down there can see that this does not work. We know that the border is not going to be secured overnight. We understand that, but we need a major shift in policy.
Woo! There we go. And we are back on My Country with Scott Cannon. Issues and Answers Friday. WLTH 1370 AM. Give me a call, 219-885-1371. Let me know how you feel about this or that. So it's going down at the border, folks. The Biden administration has said that they are going to begin denying asylum to immigrants who arrive at the U.S.-Mexican border without first applying online or seeking protection in a country that they pass through. It marks a fundamental shift in immigration policy as the U.S. readies for the end of a key pandemic restriction. Asylum seekers have been showing up at the border in huge numbers in anticipation for the end. Hold on, caller. For the end of the use of a restriction known as Title 42. That rule has allowed the government to quickly expel migrants to Mexico. U.S. officials warned of difficult days ahead as the program tied to the COVID-19 pandemic expires this week. The rule announced Wednesday is a part of new measures meant to crack down on illegal border crossings while creating new legal pathways. Families who cross the border will face curfews and monitoring. The head of the household will wear an ankle bracelet as their cases are heard within 30 days. There's also a plan to open up 100 regional migration hubs across the Western Hemisphere and granting humanitarian parole to 30,000 people a month to enter the country from 4 countries. U.S. officials have detailed steps that they've taken, including increasing deportation flights as they prepare for what they are expecting to be a substantial increase in migrants at the U.S.-Mexican border. Many migrants, spurred by concern that it may soon be harder to stay in the U.S., were trying to cross before Title 42 expires, and the new rule takes effect at the end of the day, that took place on the end of the day on Thursday. Under Title 42, border officials quickly returned people, and they did so 2.8 million times since March of 2020. Wow. But after the restrictions expire on Thursday, migrants caught crossing illegally will not be allowed to return for 5 years. They could face criminal prosecution if they do. Roughly 10,000 people were apprehended by Border Control on Tuesday, among the largest apprehensions in a single day, according to a U.S. official who was not authorized to speak publicly and spoke to the Associated Press on the condition of anonymity. More than 27,000 people were in custody. Custody numbers vary as migrants are released and deported. But in March, 8,600 people were in Border Patrol custody. Miguel Meza, the head of migrant programs for Catholic Relief Services, which has 26 migrant shelters across Mexico, estimated that about 55,000 migrants were in border cities across the U.S. on Wednesday. That shelter space is saturated, he said, and migrants were spilling into the areas around them. The measure, announced Wednesday, is a key part of the U.S. strategy to address border crossings that rose to all-time highs, even with Title 42 in effect. While stopping short of a total ban, it imposes severe limitations on asylum for those crossing illegally who did not first seek a legal pathway. It includes room for exceptions and does not apply to children traveling alone. It was first announced in February. Man, we talked about this multiple times on this show. A lot of this you have to blame on two entities. You have to blame the business community, who have always liked open borders for the purpose of bringing down wages. Bringing down wages for American laborers, American workers. That's why, Cesar Chavez back in the day, him and his cousin Manuel, they used to go down to the border and physically throw illegal immigrants back across the Mexican border. And so he was asked by Mike Wallace from 60 Minutes all those years ago, like, hey, well, what's your beef with illegal immigration? This is what he had to say.
The Mexican government to bring the Bracero program again. It's a vicious attack on the local worker, and it's just one of those things that agribusiness thinks they can get away with it. And our job is to inform the whole country what's happening, together with a boycott, and solve it that way. And so the workers themselves, even though a lot of them are Mexican descendancy themselves, are very uptight and very, very worried and very mad about the illegals coming to break their strikes, and it takes away their jobs, their livelihood, and so forth.
Does that put you in an uncomfortable position to be against the illegal immigrants because they are from Mexico? In other words, part of your program has been an appeal to equal treatment of people of Mexican origin, right?
Oh yeah, sure, but we're speaking of the legal ones. We don't want Mexico to export its poverty to us, and then we pay. It's not the agriculture, it's not society in general, it's a farm worker again paying for those sins, And Mexico should take the initiative and stop exporting the poverty to us. They should do something about the rural economy over there. And then see it's a way of breaking the strike, it's a way of demoralizing the farm workers. And for instance, the workers are going to ask for stamps, for food stamps. They're lining up the offices for welfare, and they're being told, we can't give you a job because there are plenty of jobs, and the workers say, well, there aren't any jobs. We just came from the fields, they won't hire us, or they just laid us off because either because we're strikers, or because we're members of the union, or because the illegals will do the job for half the money we're getting.
Boom. Boom. It's not our job to export, or should I say import, Mexico's poverty or anybody else's, Cuba, Haiti's, Venezuela's, anybody else's. That's how the left used to sound when talking about illegal immigration in this country. Right there, Cesar Chavez. Let me get this call really quick. Hello, caller.
All right, how you doing, young man?
It's all good, brother.
All right, I'm enjoying your show.
Well, thank you.
But what we got to realize, like now, you got billions of dollars to send to Ukraine over there.
Yep.
I guess they're going to rebuild the place. I haven't seen a new brick put up nowhere yet over there.
Mm-hmm.
And what they tell you they sending and what they know they sending is two different things. It's just like when the Mexicans coming here, across that border, you got to put them somewhere. Mm-hmm. They got to eat. They got to sleep. Mm-hmm. And you could say, well, I spent $15 million to do this, and you might only spend $2 million. We're not there counting the money, and you got people here need jobs. You got people here already don't want to work, lazy. You go to a liquor store somewhere, well, hey bro, let me get a couple of dollars, man. It ain't no more 50 cents. Let me get a couple of dollars, you know. If you can stand on your own 2 feet and talk and walk, go get you a job. You got this place what they call Brothers Keepers down there off of 21st and Broadway. People can go there and you can get a night's sleep, get up. I understand a lot of people got bad times. They might have lost their family or, don't have nowhere to stay. But all this here talking about all these jobs and stuff that people don't want to work, you got the grocery stores now. You got automatic checkout counters. You go through, you scan your own food and stuff. Now, those jobs that people should be doing, that scanner can't buy a house, it can't buy a car, it can't buy food. Right. You got it working. You ain't paying him no pension, no Social Security when he retire.
No.
But look at all the work and jobs you taking that people should be doing. If people make money, they spend money. But like they say, all the big shots, all of these congressmen and all these, everybody that got all these big jobs, they retire, they getting $100,000 a year retirement. That's way more than the average people would ever be making on a job, you know. Right. And they want it, but don't want you to have it. Right. Greedy. You know, I got $40 million. I'm gonna put some more in my pocket. You know, you can't take that with you.
Right.
But that's the world we live in, sir. That's the world we live in.
I agree. Okay. I agree. Thank you for your call. But yeah, a big problem with illegal immigration is the effect that it has on particularly black communities. This has been known for a very long time now. I mean, and this is a part of the shame, and this is why I'm so hard. Every week I come on this show and I blast liberals. I blast especially black liberals who shield for the Democratic Party, okay, and shield for things that do not benefit the black community, okay? There's been countless studies that show the effect that mass illegal immigration has on the black community. This one from Vanderbilt University, from Carol Swain, who is a professor of law and political science. I'm sorry. I'm discombobulated. You know, I just took my mask off for the first time in 3 years here. You know what I mean? You know, she calls out specifically the Congressional Black Caucus for not addressing this issue. She talked about in her volume, Debating Immigration, she talked about how African Americans are losing more jobs to illegal immigrants than to any other racial or ethnic group. Yet low-income black workers don't have political input in the debate. She based her comments on a study that was actually conducted by the Pew Hispanic Center, which found high unemployment rates among African Americans and Hispanics were partially attributed to the large number of low-skilled immigrants. She added that lax or non-existent immigration rules help businesses get away with hiring illegal immigrants rather than legal workers. She continues, the greatest competition occurs among people at the margins of society, a multiracial group that includes poorly educated blacks, whites, and Hispanics who will compete against each other and against new immigrants for low-wage, low-skilled jobs. She also found that cuts in government programs end up like student loans, and those make it harder for low-income African-American students to train for higher-paying jobs. Some African-Americans feel threatened by surges of immigration, she notes, because of the immigrants' potential impact on affirmative action. Again, this goes back to the black misleadership class. And, you know, I got to go here again. There was a sister online I was talking to on Twitter who actually put this perfectly. I wish I could remember her handle so you could check her out. But she said a big part of the problem that we have is that we as black people, and she says specifically black women, she said this, not me, have the desire to trauma bond with every group of people. Trauma bonding. This assumption that every marginalized group is inherently in it together. in every way. It has been one of the worst, most detrimental things that the black misleadership class, the Congressional Black Caucus, and these people have done to us. I talk about all the time with the Lugga Booga Tugga people, LGBTs, okay, the feminists, white women, okay, all groups of people, economic interests do not align. And the economic interest of illegal immigrants is not that of black African Americans who were born here, who were raised here, whose ancestors built this country. Simple as that. We don't have the same economic interest. I'm sure they're all very nice people. I'm sure a lot of them are nice people. But their economic interests do not align with ours. It is that simple. Their economic interests don't align with the African American communities. And that's okay. That is okay. They put us in this bag of people of color. People of color. We're all just in the basket of oppression, right? And so that's why whenever there's a march for illegal immigrants, you got to have Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton and that other fat preacher that they drag out here all the time to give a rousing MLK-inflected type speech. You saw even that guy in Tennessee, the guy with the afro. He had to do his MLK speech, and while he was talking about gender-affirming care for transgender children, you go, what the hell is this guy talking about? What does this have to do with the black community? What does this have to do with our interests? Economically, politically, socially, culturally, any of that. Okay? And I'm happy to see, finally, some black people are standing up against this sort of forced marriage of people of color. This forced marriage where we pretend like everybody has the same economic interest when we don't, and where we pretend as black people that we have to support illegal immigration. Well, guess who wasn't having it? Well, the black folks on the south side of Chicago, they not having it.
Nikki Haley, when she said that yesterday, obviously I dig at Biden, but she said 75 and up.
The Mexican government to bring the Bracero program again.
Live in.
Developing tonight, outbursts and outrage at a community meeting in South Shore over a housing plan for migrants.
The debate comes as the city deals with the crisis of where to put migrants bussed in from the border.
Elizabeth Matthews is live now with more. Elizabeth.
Corey and Don, contentious to say the least. This forum was a chance for city leaders to get input from the public about the old South Shore High School housing migrants. The city got their input.
A packed house at the South Shore International College Prep High School. The crowd voicing their opinion, strongly opposing the addition of migrants in their community.
I am just outraged. I'm outraged, and I don't understand why our community was chosen.
City representatives saying the old South Shore High School would not be a shelter, but one of 3 respite centers for the migrants to temporarily sleep, eat, and take a shower, starting with about 250 people taking up the building's first floor. This is a way for the city to get the current 300 migrants out of the police stations. Questions were asked, but answers hard to hear, interrupted by the upset crowd. Before the meeting, a small protest of South Shore neighbors demanding the energy put into the migrant issue be put into their neighborhoods.
It is a slap in the face that we as citizens of the United States of America do not have the resources and support, but you're going to bring people who are not citizens here in our community, in our buildings that we pay taxes for, that you took away from us. Yeah. That is completely unacceptable. We are in a humanitarian crisis right now. The black people in Chicago are bleeding on the streets.
Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson had this to say about the migrant crisis.
We have a responsibility to make sure that families who are seeking love and support here in the city of Chicago and throughout the state of Illinois, that they are not just welcome, but they are serviced.
So is this a done deal? A spokesperson for Mayor Lori Lightfoot's office says this is a possible solution, but still a fluid situation. Reporting live tonight, Elizabeth Matthews, Fox 32, Chicago.
Boom. There you go. Finally, the Congressional Black Caucus goes there and they, how dare you not support millions of low-wage, low-skilled workers flooding into your community? No, brother. No. And let's not, and look, I have no problem with anybody whatsoever, anybody ethnically in this country. I think, racism is low IQ pathology, personally. That's what I personally believe. That being said, can we be honest about something here? Latin America is one of the most racist places on planet Earth. It is. It is. I remember hearing George Lopez, the great comedian George Lopez, talking about some years ago about how the only black person that his grandmother would allow in their house when he was growing up was Richard Pryor on the television. That's it. Because if you were black, you could not step foot in her house. We've heard for years about stories of ethnic cleansing of black people who live in places like East LA and a lot of the neighborhoods, even a lot of the communities that black people used to dominate and live in and were the majority in Los Angeles and California, Compton, Watts, legit ethnic cleansing, black people being run out of their homes by Latin American immigrants. Often with violence. And again, the black misleadership class, white liberals who put us in that box of oppression, that people of color box of oppression, act like, oh, they can't be racist. Oh, that's impossible. Really? Really? Like I said, Latin America had slavery just like we did. A lot of these people are coming here, and the Ukrainians too. The Ukrainians have a long history of Nazi collaboration. A lot of them revere a man named Stepan Bandera, who was a Nazi collaborator in World War II, who collaborated with the Nazis against the Soviet Union, who were fighting the Nazis. So a lot of people we're allowing in this country, the Ukrainians, people from Latin America, these are some of the most racist people on planet Earth against African American people, against black people, should I say. Because they don't care whether you're African American or African. They're racist against each other. As black Brazilians, as black Mexicans, black Cubans pre-Castro. Where did the Nazis go? Where did the Nazis go after World War II? They went to Brazil. They went to Argentina. Argentina literally purged their entire black population to the point where there's virtually no black Argentinians today because they literally purged them out of existence. Brazil, that had slavery until 1888. They saw slavery in here and was like, nah. Nah, we still got more enslaving to do. These are some of the most racist places on planet Earth for black people. Hold on, callers. Very quickly, I definitely wanted the audience to get this, be able to listen to this video from our good friends at AJ Plus, who talked about the racism in Latin America and how many places in Latin America literally tried to eradicate their black people. Now, mind you, A lot of these people are coming from the places. A lot of these illegal immigrants are coming from these places.
Ingrained in the Latin American region that it's often ignored or defended, like in the case of Dominican baseball player Sammy Sosa, who downplayed using a bleaching cream that whitened his skin. From Peruvian newspapers using 159 different racist adjectives to describe African-descended people, to terms of endearment like mi negrita, which actually stem from the idea of people as property, to blackface, used as a form of entertainment. It's all part of a slew of everyday racism. There is plenty of evidence showing that racism is rampant in Latin America, but many Latin Americans have evaded accountability by treating racism as solely a U.S. problem. Unlike the U.S., where racism was upheld by legal separation like Jim Crow laws,
you're not a Texan if you're not for segregation.
Countries including Colombia, Mexico, and Brazil encouraged the mixing of different racial types, known in Spanish as mestizaje. As a result, this ideology of mixing has been used for centuries to deny the presence of Black and Indigenous people throughout the region.
This idea that everyone is mixed also has been completely overblown because Latin America is not unique in its mixedness. But that has been the mantle that it has taken upon itself so that you can evade accountability. How can we be racist if we're all mixed? Well, you certainly found very many ways to be.
Meet Harris Machado. She's Panamanian American and the producer of Negro, a docuseries about Latino identity.
We all know those sayings. You're treating me like a Black person. Trabajar como un negro, working like a Black person, don't marry a Black person. Come on, be serious again. And everybody knows these sayings. This is every single last country. Like, stop playing with us, stop playing in our faces.
To understand how deep anti-Blackness runs in the region, let's go back a couple of centuries, starting with the wars of independence from Spain for the region now known as Latin America. Meet Simón Bolívar. He's considered the great liberator of Latin America. But he wouldn't have liberated anything if it wasn't for the help of Haiti, where a rebellion by enslaved Africans created the only free republic in Latin America and the Caribbean at the time. Haitian President Alexandre Pétion agreed to help Bolívar on his quest for liberation under one condition. If Bolívar won, he had to abolish slavery and the new republic he was fighting for. Bolívar agreed, and a few years later, he defeated Spain throughout South America and declared himself president of present-day Colombia, Venezuela, Panama, Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia. Around 60% of soldiers who fought for Bolívar were Black, but Bolívar betrayed them. His promise to completely abolish slavery was a lie. He even complained that Black soldiers were audacious to want absolute equality. They had to wait 40 years after the war to gain their freedom. Bolívar and many other white elites feared that they would eventually be outnumbered by Black and Indigenous people. So he maintained Latin America's colonial, racial, and class hierarchy to keep control among the white elites. Bolívar believed in liberation, but only for some.
Whites will not give up anything to Black people, or in general, unless it benefits them more. We're talking about a definite racial and social stratification that was the foundation of the region and in which the region still adheres to. Nothing has changed.
Anti-Blackness was baked into the foundation of the region, but that anti-Blackness didn't stop with Bolívar. See, the emancipation of slavery was a threat to the social hierarchy in Latin America, so white elites came up with a plan to systemically, physically, and culturally wipe out Black people. How did the region do it? Mass white European immigration, while banning the immigration of non-whites. Welcome to the Blancamiento and Brancamiento period. which literally mean to whiten. The goal was for future generations to no longer have visibly Black and Indigenous people, so that the national identities in these new nations would be associated with whiteness. In this period, elites aimed to make Black people disappear through their gradual absorption into the white race. Over 10 million European immigrants settled in Latin America between 1880 and 1930, with 90% of them going to Argentina, Uruguay, Cuba, and Brazil. Brazil even went as far as to pay for transportation costs from Europe and passed a law making European immigrants automatic citizens as soon as they arrived. European immigrants were given preference over Black people in jobs, housing, and education. And the impacts of this are still felt today. Today, over 78% of Afro-Brazilians live below the poverty line. There have been many attempts to resist the relentless oppression of Black people in Latin America. In Brazil, the unified Black movement has challenged racial and class discrimination since the 70s. And in Colombia, Francia Marquez has led the battle for Afro-Colombian land rights since she was 15. She gave a voice to people who didn't feel represented by the white elites who ruled Colombia for centuries. And in 2022, she was elected Colombia's first Black vice president.
Después de 214 años, logramos un gobierno del pueblo, el gobierno de los nadies y las nadies de Colombia.
So the policies aimed at erasing Black people from society failed, but they successfully created many obstacles that prevented Afro-descendants from accessing land, education, and the labor market. And that's why you can't talk about the current conditions of Black people in Latin America without acknowledging the centuries of discrimination, racism, and oppression. Dash says that in order for anti-Blackness to be dismantled, people have to give up power.
Our power needs to be seized. Because we're talking about lived and material conditions when we're talking about anti-Blackness. It's not just simply someone not liking me because they are anti-Black. We're talking about systems that decide people's life and if you will even have a life.
This means it's not just about acknowledging and celebrating Black people's contributions in Latin America during festivals or national holidays, but about reparations and setting up systems that actually benefit Black communities.
It's about repair and transformation. And it cannot be up to the same people who benefit from my subjugation.
Despite these challenges, Black people throughout Latin America continue to fight for equality. And just like San Basilio de Palenque, Black communities are still standing.
Wow. Once again, big shout out to our friends over at AJ Plus, Al Jazeera Plus, for such a illuminating video. We just had, strangely enough, we just had a mall shooting the other day in Dallas, Texas, where a man named Mauricio Garcia shot 8 people randomly, killed families and everything else. And, you know, obviously whenever these mass shootings happen daily, white people, whether white folks doing them or whoever, they're always trying to figure out what the ideology is behind it. And so they looked into this man's social media history. They looked into his background. They found out the man was covered in Nazi tattoos. He had swastikas. And they go, how can a guy who's Hispanic be a white supremacist? How is that even possible? Yeah, it's possible. It's very possible. It's very, very, very possible. It's probable. Listen, if you just heard the video, it's very probable. Don't forget where the Nazis went after World War II. Argentina, Brazil. So, again, a lot of the black misleadership class, a lot of the liberal academic elite who had their basket of people of color that they wanted to maintain, they have completely screwed the pooch on this. Completely screwed the pooch on this. Let me get this caller. Hello, caller.
Hey, good evening, Scott. How you doing?
It's all good, brother.
You know, you always speak well. You bring a lot of knowledge.
Well, thank you.
Okay, now, Scott, let's go all the way back over in Africa to those tribes, okay?
Right.
Now, we understand that when the Europeans came over there putting Africans enslaved, it got to the point they had catching Africans and putting them in slaves. We understand that, right?
Right.
So the Europeans got tired of being ate up by all them big wild lions and wild tigers.
Mm-hmm.
So they said, look, man, look at him. We got these Africans right here with us helping us catch other Africans. Man, let's put these dudes here in slaves. You understand about that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So a lot of times, if I go and do you wrong, and I'm thinking I'm getting away with it, what am I really doing?
Well, you're basically setting yourself up for your own
I
demise.
read my case. That's all I was getting at.
Yes.
The Africans didn't realize that they were setting themselves up.
Uh-huh.
They didn't realize that. Why they were hurting other Africans, and when they got they butt on that slave ship and came over here, did they find out the truth about the whip?
Yep.
And don't forget now, they were being thrown off in the ocean with chains, with heavy weights on their foot and legs and arms. Put it like this: if I do you wrong, you can rest assured it's gonna come back. That's all I'm getting at. And they came back on a hardcore.
I heard that.
That's all I was getting at, good man.
It's all
so
good.
Keep on talking and speaking your wisdom.
All right, now.
Bye.
All right, thank you for your call. He's right. And slavery is one of those things where, reparations has come back with a vengeance as an issue, thanks to people like Ados and Yvette Carnell and Tone Moore and people like the FBAs with Tariq Nasheed and Friedman and all these other groups of people. One of the talking points of right-wingers has become, black people were involved in slavery too. So why should we pay you reparations when there were black people involved and Africans involved? And I go, there were Jews involved in the Holocaust, everybody. There were Jews involved in the Holocaust. There were Jews that helped the Nazis, collaborators. But we have never at any point said that Jews were not entitled to any form of reparations because they had some traitors in their ranks. That point of view is and has always been inherently anti-black, and people like Clarence Thomas and Thomas Sowell, people like Thomas Sowell especially, and Candace Owens and all these other people, they are out there specifically to push that nonsense and give it a black face. Like, well. And this is one of the things that I sort of wish that we had a real black leadership class in this country. I really wish we had real black leaders. We haven't had a real black leader since Martin Luther King passed away. Really. We haven't had a real legitimate black leader since 1968, and the lack of progress that we made have shown it in stuff like this, in issues like this. It wouldn't have taken this long for reparations to become the issue that it's become if he had still been here. But of course, that's why he is no longer him or Malcolm X. All right, folks, we got to go to a break. This one's going to be oh, no. I got to come back and do the Happy Happies. All right, so please stick around. Issues and Answers Friday. This is My Country with Scott Cannon. A maskless, finally, for the first time in 3 years, Scott Cannon here at WLTH. What a world. What a world.
The home